So make a group actually make a group. Okay, so first of all, you need to give me more comments here. It's just good practice that you need to specify what errors you're seeing, what or lack thereof, or what is it that gives you the impression that it's not actually making a new group. So specify those details so that I can skip recreating what you've already done. Alright, see that you make the form here and create these required fields. Okay, cool. Alright, and then we have group new as the path, and we're taking two methods. We're forming that, well, we're creating that form, and then pulling the data if it's been submitted. And that gets created. You add the group. You commit the group. But then things break down here. Okay. Alright, for this, if you want to create a new object, it needs to know where that object is defined. And so we just... Now down here, you can see that it doesn't know what this is because you called it a new group. So, yeah, and then you added new group to the database. So it's called new group. And that's the ID that you are now fusing together in the relationship with this current user. But we really need, I think, to specify this position as to what their position is. And that's not hard because we just then create another field just like title. And then bring this back in. Now we check the models, and when a new group is being created, this init method or initialization, the constructor, because it constructs one of these things for us, kicks off automatically and handles the keyword arguments we're passing. If we had this is actually a positional argument. It means that it needs to be placed in a certain order, and typically we'll have positional arguments loaded right here. This is a positional argument because you can see that there's no equal sign inside the parentheses here. So, and the order counts. These keyword arguments, the order doesn't count so much. The first one is special. That is actually this thing here. The instance is the self. So this is the new instance that's sort of getting passed along. So new group is being created. This variable location is the self. And so that's the reason why it's the first argument. And that's the opposite of being static. And AP Computer Science will teach you about that if you want to practice that a little bit. But you can see there is actually no user ID that we store here because that's that complex many-to-many relationship is being managed through a join table and not managed directly here as if a one-to-many relationship is done. Like a school. We note the school here because this group is only going to be a part of one school. So we can write that down. But more complex relationships actually will go through the membership helper table, and we don't, and that's how we'll fuse together the many different users to this one group. And that's also why we don't write down the position that they're going to take here. That actually gets created down here when we create a new membership object. So we've got to make sure that no positional arguments are being expected except for oneself. And we can look at the membership here and init. There is no init method. So because there's no built-in init method, it's just the default init method of this DB model that it inherits will auto run, and it's not expecting anything from us. So that's great. So let's give this a try. I need to just go to this path and let's see what I've got. Okay. Position isn't actually noted here, so we've got to set that. So I see you have two different create and edit group forms. We don't need that actually, and because the group is actually going to be just the group form generally. So because it'll do edit and create. So we're going to need to change what path that's looking for when it renders the template. And that's why we pass an action keyword argument over here, because that way it can see if that action is equal to new, then we'll load one form that'll go to the new group method over in our views. Otherwise, we'll go to the edit one, and that'll go to this route instead, which we're going to build. Okay, so now I've added in the position, and I'll save that. And now, womp womp. That was because Mr. A forgot to save. Okay, the formatting here is going to need to be cleaned up, but yep, it shows. But I realize now that there's a problem here with this view. If this is done, it should tell me that it's done. Otherwise, it's just going to reload the same form again and not bring me anywhere new. It should say, hey, good job, you did it, and show me the grouper or whatever. So I'm going to start with the flash message, and this is the content of the message and then the tone. Why did I use different quotes in these two positional arguments? Because I didn't mean to, and I'm really regretting the asymmetry there. And the flash message is built into the Flask module. And you can see in our base template where sort of the frame of our website is being built, and it has this include the little page called messages. It's a partial. We know it's a partial, meaning that it doesn't stand on its own, because it has this underscore in front of it. So security, messages, okay, all right. And then you can see it loads the get flashed messages, and this is something that's built into Jinja. So we'll pull all of the messages that are in the flash system, and if there are messages, we'll loop through each one, and we're going through two properties, the category and the messages, and that category, that string, gets passed along to this Bootstrap class, and that'll change the color, and that's the second parameter that's being passed to it, and then the message gets put in here. So we should see that when we send the message here. Okay. Now I want to return a redirect. I want to take them to somewhere else. I'm looking maybe member profile. And how is your member profile being loaded? Group index. Actually, that seems to make more sense. Let's just go to the group index. So give me the URL for the group index. Cool. And then we'll redirect them over there once you create the group. Okay. I know why it's not working. Because you're not posting. You replace this as if it was referring to a blog post. It actually happens to be just a similar word. It's talking about the type of HTML method, HTTP method, excuse me. And this is instead of requesting a page and just seeing the form for the first time, which is a GET request, we are instead doing a POST request. And so what this is doing over here is saying, hey, this form will use a POST request to this address. And over here is saying, hey, listen for POST requests as well as GET requests. And if it is a GET request, so instead of doing if the form was valid, we could also just say, hey, if it was a POST request, then generate the stuff. But this way it's a little bit safer because we verify the form, not just make sure that it's a POST request. Okay, well, I just submitted the form after filling it out, and it took me over here. So, and is there a message there? Yeah, there's a message here. And so I can see it. How do we get this? Looks like you already have some code in your custom trying to bring this to top. Position absent. There we go. And let's see. Padding. Wait. There we go. Just move that in a little bit. Alright, we've got to add this to your custom CSS. Nice job on having neatly organized CSS, because I was able to find this really easily. And let's just drop these in. Okie doke. So now you got the message. Nice. Yet in the admin thing, I don't see the school and the group and the name built in. Well, that's because you're going to name. The group has a name, and yet you call it a title. No, well, you gotta keep track of that. That's just name, and so that way we'll switch all of this. That means we've got to change it here too, and here. And here as well. Okay, the name of the group, not the title of the group. Changing that is easier than changing the database column, in which case we would need to migrate our database. Users can only be a part of one school, right? So that way we could use this users school.id to fill this in, so that way we could see what school it was from as well. Yeah, brilliant. You have the school ID loaded into the user already. So when a new group gets initialized or created or instantiated, all the same, hey, my school ID is equal to my user dot school ID. We could do school.id and it would just look up the school and then look up the ID, but we have the property right there, so we'll just take the thing that we wrote down for the user and also write it down for this group as well. And so that's just built in. And I guess I know why the membership didn't have that written down, because it's called role here instead of position, which is what I was calling it. So, yep, role. And it has no, it has no init method because we just, in the view, punctured it all in. So we can just call this role rather than position, because that's what the table is already written. We might as well not dump the database or migrate the database. So we'll select that, and that role needs to be defined right here. And that means, of course, we also have to go to the form and change this, and also check where the forms are first created. Call this role. Oh, and almost missed this group name. We even called it name over here. Oh wait, okay. Role, okay. Your role of this group. Okay, this now works. Now I'm going to make another video in which I improve the look of this form and also look at the group's listing.